Hello! In this session, we're going to look at publishing your book. You've worked up to this day, you've got that book ready, and now what do you do with it? How do you get it out there? Well, in the past, there was only one way, and that is sending it to a publisher. And you can still do it that way if you want to. The process is quite straightforward. You write a query letter to the publisher. The publisher might say yes or no at that stage. If they say no, you send it to another publisher, a query letter. If they say yes, they won't say yes straight away, obviously, not from just a letter. They'll say, send me a couple of chapters. So you send them a couple of chapters. They can say yes or no at that stage. If they say yes, it's send us the whole book. And at that stage too, they can say yes or no. It's a long process. Sometimes it takes up to 6 months to get an answer. And sometimes that answer is no. I'm going to tell you some bad news. It's getting harder and harder to find a publisher these days as more people write books. Because there are more people in the world who can, they're getting inundated with manuscripts. And so it's much more difficult for them to say yes to someone, especially if it's your first book. But don't despair, because there's another route these days, a route that's in actual fact much easier and will pay you much more than a publisher can pay you. From a publisher, you get about 1.5% of the sales. That means for every $10, you get 15 cents. That's not much. If you go down another route, which is self-publishing, then you're paying about 60% of the cost in the manufacturing of the book, but the other 40% is yours to keep. So self-publishing actually is not a bad way to go. There's lots of different ways of self-publishing these days. One of the most common ways is ebooks. You've probably yourself got a Kindle or one of the other e-readers, or you read on your iPad. I've seen many people reading on their phones. Those books which you download are very easy to publish. Kindle, for example, has templates. You upload your manuscript into the template and make sure it looks good, that there isn't a chapter heading at the bottom of a page, or you fiddle around with it for a bit, put your cover design on it and upload it, and there it is. It costs next to nothing to make an ebook these days. So that's a very cool way of going. If you decide that what you want is a physical book, there are two main ways of doing it. There's offset printing and print on demand. Now, offset printing, the printing place, need to make a lot of copies. If you know that you're going to sell 500 or more copies, then offset printing is cheaper, because the more you print, the less it costs. The cost is for the setup, and then the more books that are printed, the cheaper it gets. If you're not sure that you're going to sell that many books, then the way to go is probably print on demand. And for print on demand, what you do is you send your book to a place, they print it. They can print 1, they can print 20. If you're selling your book on your website, for example, there are places where once they press buy on your website, the message goes to the print on demand supplier, they print the book and distribute it. They send it to your customer. So the book isn't even printed until your customer actually buys it. Then the print on demand place keeps their cut and puts the rest in your PayPal account or what have you. There's another great way of going these days, and I don't want you to dismiss this, and that's audiobooks. A lot of people do these days. I know when I'm driving a long way, I listen to an audiobook in the car. It's a much better way of spending the time than just getting frustrated with the traffic. And I learn something at the same time, or I enjoy myself. Audiobooks are great. And you think, but surely they're expensive. Well, you can read it yourself if you want to, but you can also send it to a place like, again, Fiverr or Odesk or any of those providers. And there are people there that will read your books for you. You can even get it read in Sean Connery's voice if that's what you really want. And then you can have your audiobook. You send it to a manufacturer who do this all the time. They put it onto DVD, give you a template to design the DVD cover and what the DVD looks like. And then they can send it again once the person presses buy on your website. So that's a very cool way of doing it. It does lead me to an area which I'm not going to cover in these series, and that is marketing, because that's not really part of getting your book in your hand. Though up till now, we've done it, we've got your book in your hand. How you get it out into the world is not really my area of expertise, but there are people out there who are perfect experts at marketing books. And once you're up to that stage, that will be the place where you'll go, because you'll have your book in your hand and you can show it to people and say, I wrote this book.